I've been writing in this field since for over 30 years because I was very interested in the connection between the developing the law and being a force in developing the law and shaping the categories in the law and applying it. So I wrote something, the first thing I wrote in this field was a history of the 1980 Refugee Act, which was the act that really was the foundation, the statutory foundation for this area of law. And that involved looking at legislative history and case law, and at the same time I was working on cases, working on appealing cases, so I was arguing legal doctrine and also applying it in my representation of individuals. Immigration cases, the last I looked, constituted 40% of the Federal Circuit Court docket. And most of those were asylum cases. And that's actually a phenomenon of the last 10 years, that has really... U.S. immigration law was amended to provide an avenue for people who had fear of returning to their home country because they were discriminated against and they suffered serious harm, or they will suffer serious harm because of their race or some immutable characteristic or religious belief or some fundamental belief. So our law was amended in 1980 to incorporate this international concept of refugee and to grant people who are refugees the ability to stay in this country and get protection. It became part of our law in 1980, and then administrative authorities and federal courts started interpreting the provisions after 1980. The first Supreme Court decision interpreting this, the refugee definition, was issued in 1984, the second in 1987. So the law has really been, it's a post-1980 field of law. Over the last 10 years, there's been a whole development of the law related to women, eligibility of women who are victims of gender violence. There's been a recognition that when a serious harm is done to a woman, just because it's gender specific, it's still a serious harm and a human rights violation. So, you know, rape and female genital mutilation. This has been an area of law that our clinic has been very involved in developing, and that area has really developed, come into being over the last 10 years. There are other groups that, depending on the individual circumstances, have been recognized as refugees, children under some circumstances, LGBT applicants. There have been circumstances in which people are fleeing criminal and gang violence, and for various reasons, in their particular cases, they may have a claim based on political opinion or their family relationships. So I would say that gender, gang violence, LGBT, children, all of those are really new areas or areas of the law that have really developed over the last decade.